Hey, welcome back to Goals and Greatness Podcast, your weekly dose of business banter, big ideas, epic fails, and the systems that make the dream work. With your favorite duo, Kat and Lou.
Double the expertise, double the fun. I'm Lou, your navigator on this wild ride of risk-taking and rule-breaking.
And I'm Kat, your go-to guru for all things startup. Together, we're unzipping the secrets of success and taking you behind the scenes of our crazy world.
Whether you're a CEO in the making or you've just scribbled your first business plan on a napkin, we're here to fuel that fire and help you unleash your greatness to achieve those big, bold goals.
So entrepreneurs, visionaries, and everyone in between, get ready to join the ride with Kat and Lou. Let's turn up the volume and unleash your greatness. We're back. Your favorite duo. It's us. It's us back again. Excited to chat with you guys today about
limiting belief. Yes. So I think it's been on our topic list for a while, so I'm glad we finally got to it. But yeah, I don't think we kind of grow up thinking that we have limiting beliefs.
They're just our beliefs.
It's just something.
Our reality.
Yeah, it's like ingrained in us. When do you think it was the first time that you realized that you had something intrinsic limiting you?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it was until I dove into personal development, which we started talking about. It was at that point where I was like, wait, what? What do you mean limiting belief? I had never heard that term before. And I started thinking about it and I was like, and obviously in its essence, pretty basic. It's a belief about life, how you view things, whatever it is that limits you from getting to whatever that next level is. And that was something I wrote about in my book because I realized, I don't know, growing up, I knew that I wanted to do the best with what I had, right? But I didn't realize my early programming, where I grew up, those things created limiting beliefs. People like us don't have that. I remember thinking in sixth grade. And so I can identify limiting beliefs early on, but I didn't know what the heck I would never have thought they were a limiting belief. But I remember in sixth grade, right? When I first went to private school, thank you to the amazing people who helped bless us and get us there from our church. But I just remember going, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do as much as these people because I don't have the resources. I don't have those tools. I don't have that access. And that was the first time that I remember feeling like I didn't have enough. And so learning later, I guess, fast forward at 19, 20, what the heck, being introduced to that terminology, I was like, oh shit, that's what that was. Those were limiting beliefs because people like me didn't have that. I wasn't going to be able to do X, Y, Z, right? And that was something that it's in the introduction of my book, as we grow up, there's different reasons why people don't tap into their full potential. And this is one of them. It's just kind of well, these are the cards I was dealt. And that in itself is its own limiting belief, right? Because the fact is you can do anything, be anything, do anything if you want to. If you have a plan, if you commit to the actions and you go full throttle, you can make anything happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how about for you? Were you ever introduced to that terminology earlier, or when did you first hear that?
No. I think I probably first heard it when I started hanging around Cutco, and I think I mentioned this in the last episode, where that's where I had started to hear the actual words for maybe some things I realized early on. But when I started to work on it more specifically to my situation, I would say probably wasn't until we went to Tony Robbins in 2014. So then, of course, you're literally addressing everything that's happened in your life. So that was pretty transformational for me. But one thing that I always found to be curious was that I think a lot of the limiting beliefs came from just really cultural things. I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, it was even just as little as just being the only girl in my house. And what do Hispanic girls do versus boys? What are we allowed to do? And then what are those allowances?
Take care of it.
Yeah. And then what are those allowances not being able to do something? What does that prevent you from doing later on? So I always found that to be curious. A lot of the stuff was just ingrained into culture. So I think something else we can talk about is,
well, there's culture and there's also how you grew up demographically and what area.
Oh, yeah.
Also income, right? For me, that was a big divider, was the income. And again, for anyone who's maybe you're new to this, actually, let's rewind, because I heard about this at 19. Mary Lou heard about this around the same age, what it meant. But a limiting belief is like in definition, a thought or a state of mind that you actually think is the absolute truth, but it stops you from doing certain things, right?
Mhm.
And in this case, it stops you from being at your best or tapping into your full potential because you think only blank is possible for you, or whatever truth it is that you believe from your upbringing. And so, yeah, whether it's like cultural, it's where the area you grow up, right? Like if you grow up in the lower income poverty, or if you grow up really wealthy, and there's just different belief systems and truths that you feel, absolute truths about life and how things work, that are just kind of shaped and formed by the experiences and the interactions that you have.
Yeah, and what I find to be interesting is that it's not necessary. I think that it definitely has a lot to do with like how you grow up and where you started and all of that, but the circles that you put yourself in can kind of erase a lot of those limiting beliefs, because my family, we were pretty middle income, just average, not low poverty. We went to private school and stuff, but both my parents worked and we had like just enough. We didn't go on giant family vacations, none of that. We did like Disney one time every, 5 or 6 years. We would just go to the beach or park, do free stuff, whatever. But everybody that I went to school with, or like most of the people I went to school with, grew up because it was private school. And then when I got to high school, it was like another level of private school. They grew up in a different way, and you would see them thinking a little bit freer. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but it also opened my eyes a lot. So I think it's just a testament to like, even if you grow up in a specific demographic area or culture, if you put yourself in other circles, or maybe you're the one who's raising kids in maybe a different circle, but if you try and surround them with other kinds of people, then they'll develop other kinds of thinking.
Oh, I
That's
love
not
that.
specific to your situation.
And I mean, and that can go either way. Like if you're not intentional or conscious of it, you can be putting them in circles that are creating limiting beliefs, versus if there was certain people. And that's one of the things I love, like about GoBundance or Fambundance or so many of our incredible friends, and being surrounded, is like they just think different. I remember vividly a conversation with an ex where he looked at me and said, "You just think you can do anything," right? And this was like after lots of working with Cutco for a long time. I mean, this was like, so I'd been working with Cutco for a decade by then, right? So I was freaking unstoppable. But he says, "You just feel like you can do anything." And I was like, "Because I can." And he's like, "You see, like that's ridiculous." Da, 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 right? And I was just looking at him like, "Ugh, like why do you think so small?" And that was a really cool moment for me, where I was like, wow, I can't believe like how much growth I've had, but I really do believe that I can do anything. Like if I really want to do it, like I just need to learn it. I need to commit to it. Like some things might be harder. Me becoming a surgeon, probably not the best, but could I do it? Yeah, I probably could. Would I enjoy it? I can't stand blood or cutting things. So absolutely not. But it's there. But I remember him saying that and I was like, shit, like I didn't even think about it. And so I think the first step for anyone in terms of overcoming limiting beliefs would be, one, awareness that you have them, right? Like knowing that you actually, like, we all have certain truths that, like, are they truth, right? Like, are they actually the truth? And taking time to actually like kind of poke holes at it or examine it and being like, okay, is this really for real? And I think it's so inspiring, like Nick Santonastaso, right? And if you're,
Mhm.
he's just such a beautiful person inside and out. And I remember first meeting Nick, and that's a thing where you could say, oh, these are mental limiting beliefs, or people were seeing physical limiting beliefs, right? Like you can't go snowboarding, or like you can't jet ski, like you don't have legs, like you can't do this, you can't do that. Go on his channel, like go watch his clips. Like, yeah, he snowboards, he just got his car and he has one arm with one finger, and then his other, he calls it his nub that he made them cut off so he could wrestle when he was little. But like that unstoppable, like I love that, because for him, he actually has physical limits that you can look at and go, well, he can't do this or he can't do that. And he's like, well, how do I do it? Like, how do I find a way to do that? Because I want to do that. And when like he talks about like a broken mindset is probably the worst disability that you can have. But instead, he's just like, well, how can I do it? Well, how can I do it? Right? It's like, how can we apply that, right, to our everyday lives when maybe you're not missing your legs and your arms, and maybe you have one arm with one finger and that's it. And you're like, well, I can't do anything. Like, he didn't allow that to stop him, even though it was something that wasn't just here. He's actually stronger here than most humans in the world, but he didn't let like the things people actually saw, the physical limitations, allow that to be limiting beliefs of his, but it just made him more hungry to like find a way, right? And I think that's freaking incredible. And if we can all adopt that, obviously we had that in our office. I always like champions find a way, right? And I think that's for anything in life.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about what are some ways people can identify them, because it's kind of an abstract concept, a limiting belief, and because it's like it's just in you and it's a part of you, so it's hard to identify. But I feel like a simple way or a simple exercise you could do is think about something that you really want to do. That's not a goal that you tell everybody to appease people, but something that you truly want to do. And what are all the things you tell yourself to talk yourself out of those goals, or you tell yourself why you're not going to do it? And then if you write down those phrases, like those are your limiting beliefs. I hear people all the time tell me, well, I'd love to have this one day. And I'm like, whoa, you can have it one day. They're like, yeah, but I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough this, or I don't have enough blank, or I can't, anything that succeeds that I just don't have, or I can't blank, or I don't have enough of whatever. That's the limiting belief. And so that's one way that you can identify. But I know you were also giving some tips on how they can gain that self-awareness.
Great. I love what you just said, like that self-reflection part of actually looking at something and again going, wait, why do I think this? Or why do, like, questioning yourself, right? And I think that people naturally do that with things like, let's say, religion. You grow up a certain way, right? And there's a certain time that you're like, do I really believe this? Why do I believe this? Like, is this true? And you start going down this path. Well, why are we not doing that for everything else, right? Like, or like my parents said that this is the way things are, but like, do I believe that? Do I vibe with that? And so the same thing for like many of the things, like you said, like you're like, I want to go do this. And whatever stops you, like, oh, but I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the resources, or like, I'm not going to this, or I'm not going to, and going, wait a second, is that true? Right? Like, and pausing. And so it's almost like your higher self is talking to you. Like, it's like you're having this conversation, which by the way, we do all the freaking time, but maybe not consciously. And most of those conversations, when not intentional and consciously, end up very negative circles we're constantly having. So it's shifting it and going, wait, let's bring this to the fore. And I think that's how you talked about Tony and stuff. Whether you're Tony Robbins or like Landmark, like I loved Landmark. A lot of people do these days a lot of plant medicine, and there's like so many cool things that you can utilize. But the whole thing is that what it does is like, all of a sudden you're posing questions you might have never posed. And with plant medicine and things like it automatically helps put a lot of the things that were in your subconscious conscious. And that's why there's so much healing, and they're using it for therapy, and things move so quick because you're like, oh my God, like I didn't even realize I was thinking this, right? Because it's been so dug inside. And there's so much there. And so when you go to a personal development conference, that's what they're doing. They want you to understand why the heck you are the way you are, right? What has shaped and molded you? And you can read this in so many different books. You hear this in so many things, but really understanding what happened in our early childhood. What things did we hear, right? I'm in a women's program right now, and we are going through this book on healing your relationship with money. And it's just really cool to like look at and go, oh my gosh, like they're posing questions like, what things did you hear growing up, right? That shaped your beliefs about money? Like what things happened later, like whether it's things you heard, things you experienced, right? What feelings you had. And I think they've done such a beautiful job going through it with this book. And I was like, man, that's what people need to be doing for every area of your life. And it's like, why? And it wasn't until I think probably 2013 when I was like, why can't I be in like a good, loving relationship? And I like was digging in, like, why do I run away? My dad called me runaway bride. I'd been engaged like 4 times. I was married and divorced once by then. And I was like, I don't know. And I had to dig through. And as I started questioning and pondering that and going to like putting myself in situations, whether it's a personal development conference or you're doing this with a therapist or with a coach or a life coach or whatever, that certain questions were posed that I would not have known to ask myself. And I was like, right. And like, I figured things out and I'm like, holy crap, and kind of connecting the dots. And that all comes to self-awareness, right? So what are you doing to help you do that. It is much harder, like you said, to do it on your own because
Oh yeah. Yeah.
it's just your reality. Like there's nothing wrong. Like this is just what it is, or this is how I am, or right. And so it isn't until you have someone from the outside that can see your blind spots or can see those things or knows that that's not, or maybe it's not their truth. So they know it's not true, right? It's not a universal truth that they can go, and they can question it. And then all of a sudden make you question it and go, I never thought about that. Right. And so really digging in so that now you can challenge some of those limiting beliefs and really think about like, what would I tell like a friend who had this, right? Like, I think that as human beings, I don't know, have you noticed this where people are like so good at coaching other people? Then they like don't do the same themselves, or they're like, I heard someone say once like, I feel like I'm so good at helping everyone else but not myself, and I'm like just kind of laughing, but I'm like, it's a common thing that I've heard people say.
Yeah.
And so if you know that, then don't try to do it yourself. Like have someone ask you those questions, have someone help guide you as you're going through. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I was, and I was just thinking right now that there's no finite like solution to this. Everybody questions themselves. And to this day, I recall we had a conversation recently, maybe even as recent as like 2 weeks ago, where I'm like, can I even do this? Should I do this? Am I good at this? Like, and it's just a natural thing that our brain does and brings up, because I'm 30 years old now. Most of my life was programmed in a certain way, and it's going to take more than a lifetime or more that amount of time of life to reprogram that stuff. And even when you feel reprogrammed or like you've overcome a lot or now you're positive or whatever, those things are still going to come up, because naturally as life moves on, your goals are going to get bigger. And so the parts of you that had those limiting beliefs could still creep back in, but there are different different things that you can implement in your life to help you combat that. And one is that example is like, if I have a limiting belief, I'm not going to go talk about it with somebody who has a bunch of limiting beliefs or is in a negative or bad place, because misery loves company. I'm going to talk about it with people that are on my level or a little bit above. So that's like me coming to you and talking about it. I know you're going to look at me and be like, are you dumb? You're going to be able to do this. Like, this is how you do it. Maybe not say, are you dumb? But you're going to give better motivation than if I were to go to somebody who was having the same thoughts. So I would say, so step one is like, put yourself in a better spot for sure.
Yeah.
What are other things that people
By the way,
do?
I want to point out what you said. I love what you mentioned, because I remember my husband asking me like, how did you get past like some of this stuff like so quick, or and I said, it wasn't a quick process, but it was a very intentional, and it would be quicker, I think, than probably most humans. It wasn't like, okay, it took me 30 years to get here. It's going to take me 30 years to get past it. It's not going to take that, but you need to be patient with yourself, because it did take 30 years of programming to get to where you are now, right? And so we really need to be patient with ourselves, but with the right tools, with the right focuses, with the right guidance, we're able to really move the needle on things. And that's really cool. But I remember, what was it, 2000, I think it was fall 2006 when I went to Landmark. And there were things that I realized, like, again, Landmark, I think, is so beautiful because its whole focus is about helping you understand why you are the way you are, understanding that life, people, experiences, whatever around you really shaped and molded who you are now. But and so knowing that it wasn't just I was born this way, it's like, no, I was programmed this way, and we can reprogram ourselves. Unfortunately, it's not as fast as a computer where we can press delete and reprogram. It's going to take a little longer, but setting the right, like having the vision of where you want to go and what you want to look like, how you want to act, whatever it is, right? Whatever the end result is for you or for your business or for whatever it might be, but having a clear vision of like where your future self will be. And then knowing that like, I can get there. I got here. I wasn't trying. Now I know what I want. And so let me start stepping into that. What would Kathy 10.0 say to this? Like and I remember adopting that during that season in 2007, 2008, as I was just doing a lot of reprogramming. And it wasn't, and I remember one of the things I wanted to reprogram was like how freaking hot-tempered I was and how short patience I was. And this was a process that started for me in 2007. And I remember distinctly in 2015 being in our kitchen in Houston when you said to me, like, how do you have so much patience? You're one of the most patient people that I know. And I was like, like, I don't know, at time I was going to drink something, I wanted to spit it out. I'm like, those are words I literally never thought I would hear. All right. It was 8 years later when someone said that, right? That was a process to get there. And it was something I worked a lot on where I was like, and I'd step back and go, okay, all right, process through, like, really, how do I see this through the eyes of God? And I remember that was something that really helped me of like, how can I see something with grace and compassion? How can I see? And it was a process, right? To get to that point. But I remember that day, I was like, what? Because that is just so opposite of what I need to be true to my nature, right? And we can do that for all different areas. And so I would say, kind of wrapping this up, I think it's really important to, I think, one, have like one, I think, just know that we all have limiting beliefs, right? And you might see them in the form, or if you're someone who's a professional who's been here a while, you might hear this in the form of imposter syndrome, right? And so feeling like I can't be here or I can't do this, like that's a new way that it manifests itself. But those are also limiting beliefs. Like I don't belong in this room. So imposter syndrome is something that we hear of. But I think first is one, making a decision for yourself to go, okay, what beliefs do I currently have that are very true in my world that are keeping me from where I want to go? And take some time to journal that and identify that. And if you need help, hire somebody to help with that. I know we have group coaching. There's so many incredible people out there. You can go on our website as well and check stuff out, but just like really start digging in so you can identify. And then, like I said, identify your core values, right? Like, what are things that are important to me, right? And what are beliefs around those and where I want to go, where I want to be. And so really taking time to reflect on what truly matters and adopt beliefs that support those values and aspirations, and then celebrate like as little things happen. I remember in 2007, I walk into my office, something happened, and normally I would have probably tried to rip my assistant's head off verbally, maybe physically too. And, instead I was like, I took a deep breath and I'm like, hey, not sure what happened here. And I just remember like being really calm about something. And I was like, oh my God. I like call Andy. I'm like, I'm so proud of me. But like celebrate those wins. Cause like that helps build self-confidence and like, I can do this, right? Like celebrating those small victories, focusing on strengths and accomplishments. We are so effing good as humans to focus on everything we mess up. How can we be so dumb? Like we're so good at affirming all the negative things about ourselves. Could we be more conscious to actually like lean in and praise ourselves for anything good that we do, as little as it can be? Because as little as a stupid thing we do, we definitely point it out to ourselves, right? So like,
yeah, I was on a TikTok vendor a couple nights ago, just scrolling through, getting some mom brain relaxation. Maybe not the best kind, but it's definitely fun. And I was laughing because I was scrolling and this one girl shows up on the thing, and it's like day one of being consistent at the gym, and she's like, step one, get to the gym, and it shows like 5 days in a row where she like goes to the gym, clocks in and leaves, and celebrates that she got there. And it sounds so silly, but that's a really great way to program yourself to be like, hey, I'm gonna celebrate, I got there. And I don't know what the next day is gonna be. Maybe it's like she's gonna touch a machine. I don't know. But that's a silly example, but that's just an example of how you can celebrate the small things. It doesn't need to be like, oh, I did a marathon, now I'm great. It could be something as small as just showing up.
It's huge. And then so good. So yeah, celebrate. And then I think my last two things would be, make sure you surround yourself with support, right? Like, do you have, like, we've talked about this before, what does your circle of influence look like, right? Who's pouring into you? Who do you need to be spending more time with you that's going to lift you up and move you in the direction of where you want to go? So friends, family, mentors, masterminds, communities that uplift you, that encourage you to pursue your goals and dreams. That's been like a game changer in my world, that's for sure. And really embracing that growth mindset. And over the next couple episodes, we're going to be talking a lot about this stuff and fixed versus growth mindset and different things on how to really move past that, because it's important that you're able to develop that and resilience in the face of anything that's happening that can knock you down, because life's going to happen. Shit's going to knock you down. So you got to be ready for it. So any last words or any questions from you?
No, just my only quirky question is not really even quirky. Just what are you most excited about for this summer? We have a new season coming about, and I know you have some special exciting things. I know you're not traveling, so I was going to ask you about travel, and I was like, wait, she's not going anywhere this summer.
Hey, I've got 2 trips left in May. I got Costa Rica and California. So my happy place is by the beach. So I'm very excited for that. But definitely little Natalie will be born in July. So pretty stoked for that. And random, but our virtual summit that we are running in June. I love being able to pour into people. Like, obviously, we started this podcast because we wanted to help people be at their best. And I'm really excited for a lineup that we're putting together that's going to be just ridiculous, from like world-class speakers that are come and bring it to help everyone finish the second half of the year strong. So that's what I'm most excited about for this summer. You?
Well, you stole the words out my mouth. I was going to say, I'm excited for our summit. Just us still trying to give back as much as possible, even though we're a little travel limited for this next season. But yeah, so definitely check it out. We're going to be posting all the information on that on the socials. It'll be on our website, goalsgreatnessunleashed.com. And as always, we want to hear your thoughts. So feel free to comment on our podcast here on Spotify or YouTube.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.